New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here as I am each week, or just about. We are sponsored by Satya, the Satya Center, which is a spiritual community that I founded, I don't know, in 08, 09, here in Northern Utah. And we are produced by New Thought Media Network. So thank you very much to our producers for helping us create a whole nother year's worth of incredible shows, podcasts, conversations. And that's what we do here every week. We have a deep dive conversation with a soul-centered individual that channels their time, their talent, their energy, their resources, their love, their joy into doing good work in the world. And today is not an exception from that, but it is a little bit different because today, as those of you that are watching versus listening to this, you can see my co-creator, my co-collaborator, Diana Soroka. Her and I are creating a beautiful project. It's a big project. And it's starting out with a book. And so Diana and I, for the last few years, have been what I call stirring the dream cauldron, or creating something, noodling, coming together to put our minds and our hearts and our energy together to create something beautiful. We both have a passion for working with women. And this project is just that. It is called Her Wings Appeared. And like I said, it's starting with a book. And Diana is the writer. She's the one that is really pulling all the strings and doing a lot of the work behind the scenes in bringing this project out into reality, out into view. And I am part of the project, obviously. I'm more of the one that had an idea, a creative idea years ago, decades ago, about goddesses, women, being support for one another and creating art that supported women, their growth, their spiritual awakening, and their healing. And so, Diana, do you want to share a little bit about Her Wings Appeared, the project, before we dive into this conversation that we're going to have today?
Sure. I am blessed and grateful to be part of this. And it, like Allie said, we met and we knew that we were going to do some sort of project together, but we weren't quite sure what would work for both of us. And I loved her drawings and her paintings, Her Wings Appeared goddesses. And early one morning, I just got an inspiration that this is what we should do. We should work together to create a book, and that it would be full of stories of women who had moments or experiences when their wings appeared. And that was when they healed something, when they felt confident and liberated and something broke open in them to let life in. And that was when, those moments when wings appeared. And I mentioned it to Allie, and she welcomed it in. She welcomed it, and so together we have it's been a labor of love for sure.
It definitely has. And we talked about this episode, and we talked about sharing a little bit more about what these wings mean, because I think it can be confusing. I know for me as a painter artist I've done several shows with my art, with my women, aka goddesses, which isn't, that title or that name, goddess, doesn't really describe exactly what I'm painting, because it sounds like it could have something to do with the past, with mythology, with religion or paganism, but it's not, but it might be. So it's a very sort of a creative idea. The goddess really represents whatever you want that to represent. For me, it represents me as a woman, who I am in the world, how I want to be, how I want to show up, and the energy I want to bring. It, to me, a goddess, or one of my paintings of these women, is to help people, women and men, but women primarily, have a deeper look at who they are, who they're becoming, who they want to be. And so I've been doing these paintings for decades now. And eventually I got into galleries and exhibits and competitions with my art. But these women, these figures, they didn't have wings. They were just sort of the stereotypical goddess form, meaning a woman that had a spiral at her center, representing her creative capacity, her ability to bring forth life, and the female form. And so I would create these images, but then in COVID, the lockdown, I moved out onto the road with my husband, and we traveled around the country for a year. And that's when I started really painting these goddesses with a greater meaning. Their wings appeared, and I started painting wings on them. And these wings represented something. And that's what Diana and I decided to dive into a little bit. What does that mean? Because I don't think my version of what wings are might be everyone's version, but I think my version is also expanding, evolving, and growing. And I'd like to get a bit more into that, because I think that this particular moment in history, in time, it's time for us women to mend any bridges that have been broken, to connect, to join together, and to grow and start to be a louder voice for peace, for healing, for love. And so the wings are representational of that for me and for many of my clients. And I work with women in circles. And so we talk about these things. We talk about what gives us strength, what have we healed, what and who do we need to become in order to realize the dreams that we have in our hearts. And so what about you, Diana? When you've seen these images, you've been writing stories. I think you've got over 20 now of moments where either a lived experience or an experience someone else has shared with you. You've written a story about women or yourself growing wings or having that moment, that aha. And so can you talk about what wings have meant to you as you've written these stories?
Yes, I've reflected on this so much, trying to get really clear on what this means to me. And I want to say this first because I think it means something that, a lot of us, we assume that once your wings appear, they're there forever. Like you cross this invisible line and suddenly you're healed or, are feeling really confident or that you're done. And I don't believe that. I I believe that we women are born goddesses. That we come into this world pure and lovely and beautiful goddesses. And that part of us is like intact from the very beginning, and there's nothing that can take it away. Nothing. But in this human life, our wings don't stay open all the time. And maybe it takes a while for them to open, or maybe they don't stay open for too long. And that's simply because we're human beings. We feel, we think, and we do as humans do. And that is all kinds of ways that shows up. That is demonstrated. Um, for me, my wings appear in moments and sometimes over long stretches of time, sometimes just briefly. And they appear when I stop trying to prove myself,
Mm.
when I stop performing, when I stop abandoning myself to meet expectations that were never mine. Fear and shame are my big thing. Fear and shame are usually what fold my wings up.
Mm.
And that could be fear of, being too much, not being enough, fear of judgment, shame that tells me that I should know better by now, or that, that I'm not, who I am is not quite right. And of course, there were seasons in my life when my wings stayed folded for a long time. And in that time I was surviving, was fearful, sometimes doing just doing what I had to do and thinking possibly that what I was doing was right, but I was acting out of fear.
Mm.
That I was carrying fear, holding shame in places that, maybe I didn't quite understand or have the language for. So, and then, as time has gone by, I've had seasons where they unfurled beautifully and more often. And that was when I lived closer to the truth of who I am, when I chose authenticity, honesty, over approval from others. And when I just trusted myself, a little more than all of the societal noises that I was hearing.
Mm. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think we are so influenced by the world around us. We are so influenced, especially by our family or our close loved ones. And it seems like many of us play out roles.
Yeah.
For us, we're both mothers. And so there is a deep connection to that role. And it evolves over time. I'm a different mother today at 63 than I was when I first had my first child at 22. And so I, have evolved. We all do as women. And I think these stories that we're pulling together to create this book of stories of women, some mothers, some not, because there's, shared stories with the roles we play as mother, as partner, as sibling, as all of these things. We have a lot of shared stories and a lot of shared wounds, a lot of shared success, and it's multi-generational. you know, the mother I was at 22 versus the mother I am today at 63 has evolved. And I would love to share stories with that younger self, those mothers, those women that are just becoming mothers,
Yes.
and all the stories that I could share, some heartbreaking, some, just helpful little things that I realized over time in my 30s and 40s and so on, that supported me where I was at that particular time, like becoming an empty nester.
Yeah.
And, growing wings to accommodate an empty nest, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the idea of women sharing stories as a way. I think about long ago, our ancestors, before life got to be as complex as it is now, but the early times, maybe when we didn't live in brick and mortar houses, but we gathered around fires, in living on the land. And maybe in the evenings, we would gather around fires and tell stories. And I love that idea of this book being like that, a moment to maybe you do go sit next to a fire and you put a blanket around you and you take up this book and you read stories from women young and old, women that have been through loss and change, transitions, women who are just at the beginning of their lives, their journeys into, midlife. So that's what I see for this book, is to be a comfort, to be a source of inspiration and a source of wisdom from elder to younger, and then the amazing wisdom that the younger generation give and offer to us elders, and women that are much older than Diana and I. And so that just feels so uplifting, the thought of inviting women from all walks of life, from all ages, to come share their stories with us. And we talked about this being a bigger project than simply a book. And that will be disclosed or revealed or created over time. But we have several books here. We have maybe retreats, gatherings, get-togethers where we can actually sit around a fire and share stories. So as I share all that, Diana, what do you see as far as women sharing stories with one another, multi-generational, and this idea of sitting around the fire together?
Well, it feels very comforting, and I think that what you're saying is true. Women coming together has always felt right to me, because we are strong, and we're the ones who hold and express the love in words often, and we share our wisdoms, we share our life learnings, which sometimes they're hard to hear, sometimes at the moment they don't turn out the way that we hoped for, but we're the ones who see the lesson. We see the lesson, we learn from our mistakes, and we make them for sure. We're not perfect, we make the mistakes, but we learn from them. And when we share with others, the connection is felt in the heart, it's in the soul. It's a remembering, it's a continued remembering of who we are, and it's kind of, I love that you brought that up, because when I think about the wings and everything, one really important part is, the unfolding isn't always that the inner process, that the our own self-awareness, our own self-reflection and growth. some of my deepest, like, wings appearing moments didn't happen through my own insight or own healing work. They happened through compassion, compassion with other, shared compassion. And through humanity, as you know, I recently wrote a story that'll be in the book, and we haven't figured out titles quite yet, but this time I'm calling it In Fernanda's Chair. And that's a time when I slowed down to truly see, another person, to honor their dignity, to be present with them without trying to fix them or something like that. And those kinds of moments change you. They open something that's unfolding too, So for me, this book that we're writing is going to be that shared humanity, the shared stories we have, the shared experiences, and the learnings that possibly others won't have to go through because they hear us. They hear us. And they see, they see themselves in our stories. When I meet my shame and my fear with compassion, possibly my wings come out. When I remember that we women, we human beings, we belong to one another. That's what the hope of this book, is for me. I think that you and I are definitely, it's synchronistic in this and where we're going. We have different words to say it, but we're right on the same path. We want to bring together women. We want to share our hearts and our stories with women, and we want them to share with us as well. So,
yeah. Yesterday I took my husband and I took my granddaughter to see the new Avatar movie.
Oh.
And there's such a beautiful, there's so much to this whole Avatar trilogy that's been out there. And I was also reminded how violent that movie is. So FYI, it's a pretty violent movie, but there's some really soft parts and some very meaningful, deep metaphysical lines or stories or spaces within the movie. And this idea that we can plug in and connect because we see each other, that we're all one, we're a unified consciousness. And I'm not speaking just to women, I'm talking all sentient beings. We're all connected. And so when one of us has the insight or the courage to share a story, to share something we learned, some challenge or some great accomplishment that we've experienced, we've had the lived experience of it. Like you said, maybe someone else that's reading it doesn't have to have that same, difficulty in that. The reading of the story will bring an awareness, self-awareness, and maybe give them some insight into the choices they're making as they move through the world.
Yes.
And so as we share this book, as we offer this opportunity to connect and to remember and to realize that we're not in this alone, that many of us in our lives might feel alone. Some people are more introverted than others. And so it's easier for some to be social and to be in community. And then for others of us, it's not so easy. We prefer time by ourselves. So a book like this or a project like this gives us an opportunity to feel connected through the written word and the art. That's one of my contributions to this body of work is my art. And I have just so enjoyed creating pieces, and we are connected, and we are, in this collaboration. There is a great synchronicity or synchronistic flow to what we're doing. And my art, your words, you share a story with me, and I'm inspired to write. I've been writing as well, but I've been inspired to paint something. And I'd show you my newest one, but it's only a sketch at the moment, but it's of an elder woman. And she is fully embracing her age, her wrinkles, her wisdom, and it's shown in this painting. She's older. She's got long gray hair, kind of like this, but a lot thicker. And she's inspired by the solitude that she finds herself in the autumn months and the winter months. And so the painting has a lot of symbolism, and it has a lot of wisdom in this woman's energy, because she's been through a lot. That she carries stories, and that she's there to be with you, whatever you're going through. So I know that I've been sharing my art with you as we've been going, and you've probably seen that I'm picking up on some of the themes that you're sharing in the stories. How do you see the mix of art and story working together within our project, Her Wings Appeared?
Well, your art is what inspired the book in the first place. So the art is, it touches me at a deep level, for sure. And so I think you're right. We're very synchronistic. You're working off my words, I'm working off your art. And I think it's going to be just very impactful book that empowers women to be who they are at the deepest level. And sometimes we don't know who that is. So it's a process of learning how to peel back the layers, and that we've been socially formed and sculpted, and find out who we are, and then be that person we were born to be. I think that all of this is just going to work together and be absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait. Everything's just flowing, like we've talked about before. When things just come out and they come together, they flow, you work well with one another, you respect each other, you see yourself in the other. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, help me with my words there. Beautiful work of art. Yes. Yeah,
it is. We're creating an experience for people that is a collaboration of our energy. It's a collaboration of our passions. And I think that there'll be many ways that this book will be a transmission of our hearts, our creativity, and our wisdom. And it will be sort of like an activation for people. Mm-hmm. This book isn't just something that sits on your bedside table, or it's going to be something that you can pick up and meditate with. It's going to have wisdom. It's going to have grief. It's going to have great joy. And I think it's going to be sort of like almost like an inspirational deck of cards, or like a calendar when you turn the page to the new month and there's a new image and it's a new month. Every page, every piece of art, every story is going to be an opportunity for you to find yourself, for you to discover something about yourself. And the energy that we have placed into it is going to touch people in different places at different times for different reasons. And so it's not a static piece of work. It's a living, breathing, evolving something. Similar to when you read a book for the second or the third time, and I'm not talking about this book, but any book, you can often, I've had this experience, you read it for the second time and you hear something different. You read it for the third time and it feels like it's slightly different. Did I miss something in the first couple of times I read it? Because you hear something different, and that's because you're different. You're in a different place, and so you're experiencing something different. And this book, this project is like that. It's evolving, it's growing, it's going to meet you where you are if you let it, if you let it in. So we're going to go to a short break, and then we're going to come back, and Diana is going to share one of our stories. We'll see you in a minute.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And we're back. So it's our intention eventually, once we've got all of our stories in from the women, and currently they're in the thick of writing their stories. And in January and February, we will be bringing them together and sort of laying out the book in the order that we want the stories to flow. And so we're still in this really wonderful place of creation at the moment. But the women, and they're from all over the place, are sending in their stories, and Diana's working with them, helping them to create edits or give them some feedback. And eventually we're going to have the women on the podcast. We're going to have them right here on Growing Edge, on the growing edge of their own evolution, to share their stories. And so it's not, that's what I mean about this is a collaborative, this is a dynamic project that isn't just going to be a book. It's going to be it's going to be this podcast. It's going to be women. You're going to get to see them in person, sharing not only the story that they wrote for the book, but sharing about their lives, how their lives got to be the way they are. And so the depth of their impact isn't just in the story. It's going to be in actually meeting them, connecting with them. And so what do you have to say about the project, where it is right now, and the thought of bringing women on and having the three of us have episodes where we dive more deeply into who they are and what they're doing? And I know we're going to share a story today.
Well, I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be. Everything is moving forward, and we have a beautiful, amazing group of women, and I'm already learning from them. they have such wisdom and stories. You know what? Um, it's so, I guess, calming to me to know that I'm not the only one, that we all go through hard things and we find our way through. You know, we find our way through, and these women have done that. They've gone through hard things. They found their way through in beautiful ways, and they're sharing them with us so that we learn from them. And I definitely already am. So
Yeah, me too. I haven't read the stories that have been submitted yet, but I've read your stories, and oh my goodness, there's so much in reading a story that you take in, and it does shift something inside you, and it helps you to, especially if it's a story about a relationship. I find a lot of insight into understanding, hearing people share their stories about challenges they've had in their relationships, that help me in my relationships, that help me be a better me, because I can see somehow when I read one of these stories, I can see some of my blind spots, some of the things that I do that it's so much clearer when I read it through, someone else's story. Like I can see, oh, that wasn't such a good idea, but I can't see it inside me because it's like my nose, it's so close to my face, I can't see it. And so when I hear another woman sharing in a very vulnerable way something that she's discovered or overcome, then I can, gently offer some of this, wisdom to myself and to my personality, so I can maybe smooth off some of my rough edges. And so it's been really helpful reading your stories, Diana.
yeah, thank you. I love writing, first of all, and I love sharing my stories. It's therapeutic for me, and it's helpful to others, and that is why I do it. That's fills me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wrote one of the stories that I'm adding to the pool of stories here, and it's so interesting to gather your thoughts about a lived experience, and especially if it's happened over time. Maybe it happened 10 years ago or so, and so you can re-engage with your own growth throughout the story, from who you were and how you were when it happened, and then who you are and how you are now, 10 years or whatever later. And writing a story helps to kind of just make it like there's wisdom or insights or gifts that come out of the writing of your own story that you wouldn't have received had you not done the difficult task of sitting down and writing or typing out your story and remembering the dates and remembering who was there and remembering what happened, or maybe there's forgiveness that's going on within the story, forgiveness towards yourself because you've grown, or you've quit doing particular things that were self-sabotaging or negatively influencing your relationships. And so there's a forgiveness, there's a remembering, there's a truth that's found within the writing of your own story that is transformative, that is powerful.
Yes. And one of the amazing gifts of reading other stories and seeing yourself in it or writing your own is gratitude. I mean, there's always gratitude. It could be, gratitude for I finally did this, or gratitude that I made it through that. And I did pretty good considering, because there's a different lens when you're looking back at things that were hard and reflecting on it. That's pretty much what you just said. But yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, because so many things, what I found when I was writing the story, there's so many parts of the story that I've kind of hidden away, like there's things that were maybe difficult that I just kind of put in the back on the back burner, or didn't want to look at because it was painful or it stirred up difficult emotions. But actually, in bringing that to the light, it loses its my perceived negative energy around it, and so it softens the harshness. And I think that's another part of women coming together, or men. I know my husband's led many men's groups too, coming together with your peers and sharing and being open, being vulnerable, learning from one another. It's such a gift, a powerful gift we can give ourselves. And so this book, even though it's not people coming together so much in person, but it could be like a book study or a book group, or something could form in that of that nature out of this. But that sharing, that collective discovery, and building consciousness, it's not just happening for me or for the women in my group or the people that purchase a book and take it into their own lives. We're creating an expansion in the collective consciousness, because I think of that phrase, things buried alive stay alive, meaning when we bury our thoughts or our uncomfortable feelings or our stories or our shame or whatever, that has an unhealthy repercussion of things that we don't bring into the light can cause us some pain. And so bringing things into the light and allowing the light in and expanding our reach through the sharing of stories, it can only be a blessing for everyone.
Yes.
So you go ahead, and then I want you to share your story.
Okay. So I was just going to say, when that happens, when you're able to bring that shame, that fear, whatever it is, in your story, and it could possibly just be here, but it comes out in a story, and you tell how you feel, and someone else resonates with it, and they do their thing. But for me, when I tell my story, and I've got some stories that I'm not exactly proud of, but I'm sharing them because I've gone through this healing process, this awakening to my own shadows, and seeing myself, and still seeing myself as a goddess. And that is so refreshing. And like you said, expanding and liberating. I just can't even tell you, when you settle with yourself, when you come to terms with something and you're ready to let it go, and you do, it's amazing.
It is.
Yes. So I do have a story I'm going to tell you, and this one is not in the book yet. I've been wondering about it, but I'm going to share it because I do see it as a beautiful moment that my wings appeared. So I'm going to just use a few notes so that I remember the details I want to tell you. So my mom was recovering in a Texas hospital after surgery. It was a Monday, and they were removing a pancreatic tumor. And this surgery went really well. The tumor was benign, but this particular surgery on the pancreas is very hard on the patient and super painful. And I had flown in from Arizona to be with her. So she was pretty much out of it a week. On Thursday, she was feeling a lot better. We talked about the new home that she and my stepdad were buying, how she wanted to decorate each room. She was so excited about it. And at one point she said, I'm feeling better. I would really love a sponge bath. But the nurses were too busy. They couldn't get to her. And I am not the most nurturing person. I would never be a nurse. But I'm just not that person, and I can say that. But I asked her if she would like me to give her the sponge bath, and she said yes. And so, of course, I went forward with it. And I just want to tell you about this. I I don't really have the words to tell you the magnificence of this experience. The love between us was overwhelming. It was sacred and it was intense. I could feel this energy between us. We barely spoke. I washed my mother's body, and tears were in her eyes, and they were in mine too.
Mm.
And when I finished, my mom thanked me from a place that I've never seen before. And she told me that she loved me, and of course, I told her that I loved her too. I'd been staying in the hospital with her, but at her insistence, I was supposed to stay across the street in a hotel that night to get some sleep because she was feeling better. But something in me said, stay, stay. And I asked her, Mom, do you want me to stay? And she said, yes. And we talked some more. We watched Wheel of Fortune, and she fell asleep. And in the early morning hours, her IV alarm went off, and the nurse came in, did her thing, and Mom woke up briefly. I asked her if she was okay. She said yes, and then she drifted off to sleep. And I was just sitting there in the dark for, I guess, gathering my thoughts, and I heard her talking in her sleep. And I had enough experience with death to know what that might mean. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there, I'm listening, and a few minutes later, I heard her breath change. And I called out her name, a couple times, and she didn't respond. So I got the nurses. They came in quickly. They started working on her. It was very intense and scary. I stepped into the hallway. And then that's when I felt it. This deep, warm, radiant heat just entered my head. I felt it enter my head, and it moved very slowly through my entire body. And as it went, it calmed my body. And I was really aware of how hot it was. I knew it was her spirit. I knew she was gone, and I knew she was okay. And if I hadn't listened to my intuition, I would not have been able to receive those gifts that she gave me as, the honor to be in the room as she passed from one realm to the other. And I was in shock and grief, but I also felt immense gratitude in the moment. So when my wings appeared, when I followed my intuition, and what I noticed it too is my mom's did too. Mm. So that's one story.
That is such a moving story. What a difficult experience to have with your own parents, with your mother. And what a beautiful experience of bathing her and having one of those, having a moment like that is so far outside of the normal way that you connect, and having that be just hours before her passing. I can really feel the depth of that experience for you, and that it will always be there. That gift for you, that gift of that whole connection before she departed, and then after her departure from the physical, and feeling that heat, that these sensations that we feel when we're really present and paying attention can be so validating and so give us such a glimpse into the depth of life and the dimensions that are here that we're maybe not paying attention to in our everyday lives. But something, that experience and that memory will be a constant portal for you to connect with across time and space, connect with her through that memory and that felt experience. What an absolute gift and a blessing, Diana. Thank you for sharing that. I've not heard that.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. So have you had, I know because you and I talk a lot, that you've had mystical moments, and that you and I are both on a spiritual path, an awakening path, and we've had enough life experience to experience loss and death and birth. And have you had more experiences with your mother in particular since, and how long ago was that?
It was in 2011.
Okay.
And I feel it, like I can feel it and remember every piece of it, just every bit of it. Still, it's one of those that will stick with you. And every time I do, I mean, it's sad. It gets to me. I can feel it in my body right now. And I miss my mom. I do. I miss her so much. But I have peace. I have peace because I got to be there. What an honor to be when she passed, how gentle it was, how peaceful it was. And to know that I'm certain that there were others there meeting her, and I think she jumped at the chance, actually.
Oh, that's so interesting. You said jumped at the chance, because I was thinking, my husband, Michael, he had an experience with his mother. She died in his arms.
Oh, wow.
And we'll have to have him on. Maybe we'll have a collection of stories of around death and dying. I mean, here I am smiling. I can't believe that, because 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had a smile on my face as I was sharing a story about death and dying, but something's changed. And stories like yours are so helpful in realizing the beauty that can be experienced in the witnessing of someone's passing. But getting back to Michael and his mother, Carolyn, he actually felt her jump, like her body like lunged forward during that time of exhalation of her final breath. And she too, I remember being with her just before, and I asked her, we were listening to some music that designed particularly for someone on their deathbed. And I think it's called Sacred Passages. Anyway, we were listening to this music, and it's all teachers like Ram Dass and Thich Nhat Hanh and other people that are having wisdom for people on their deathbed. And I asked Carolyn, this was maybe a week or two before she passed, if she was able to meet with anyone on the other side, and if she had any, and she said yes. And so we'd never had a conversation like this before, so this wasn't something we were usually talking about. But she said, yes, I've met a big white bear. And I thought that's so interesting, because she wasn't really like someone that was into animals or fairy tales or anything like that. And so to hear her talk of this big bear, and I said, well, what's this bear been telling you? She said, not much. He's just really nice. And I thought, okay, there's so much when we're willing to lean in and to, embrace an experience that is as devastating as seeing a loved one, in illness or coming to the end of their life. It can be so painful. And I was someone that would like not go there. I remember I couldn't even be with my cat that was ailing because it hurt. But my husband, Michael, he was a hospice chaplain for a period of time. And so he's way more able, and he invited me to come and sit with our cat Whisker and just created a safe place for me to not, I'm so empathic that I pick up or I perceive the other's pain. And so I couldn't be with Whisker because he was in pain. But once Michael invited me into that space, creating it more as a sacred container, I then could show up without the fear or the of Whisker's pain. And I'm sure this is similar to people that can or have developed a capacity to be with their loved one when they're near the end. And stories like yours help us to consider, okay, maybe there's something here that I need to experience. It's not just for me. Maybe I can overcome my hesitation and lean in here because I want to give my loved one more comfort, more opportunity to have a shared experience. So we're at the end here, and I'd love you to have any final comments about your experience with your mom or things I've just said or our project.
Well, I'll share this little tidbit. A couple days later, maybe it was a week, but I received a card in the mail. I was still in Texas helping out there. And the card was from a friend of mine, an older woman who was a psychic, but she was a quiet psychic. She didn't tell people, unless you knew her well. And she sent this card and it said, "Your mother visited me and she told me the day, and it was the night that she passed. And she said to tell me that everything has gone exactly like we planned it." And that was comforting to me.
Very comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of us seek out a psychic in times of loss like this because we do all feel this loss and want to connect with our loved one because we're so accustomed to being here on the material plane with them. And so we want to know where they are and how they are. And so to get that, everything.
Right. And I didn't seek it out. It just happened. So that was she didn't even know anything.
Wow.
She hadn't heard anything, but she sent that. So that was really, it was comforting and calming, and it reminded me of some things my mother and I had talked about. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this conversation here at the Growing Edge has touched your heart and expanded your wings. And Diana and I are here to hear your stories. If you have a story, you can send them to us. Where would you like people to connect with you?
Well, my email address is info at wildhearts.com. And that's with 2 Ds. Wild has 2 Ds. So info at wild, WILDDHEARTS. Oh, thank you very much.
There you go. There, it's on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Diana. I love you and I love your stories. I love your heart. I love everything about our project. And to you and to New Thought Media Network and to the Sakti Center, thank you so much. And we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.